Hi guys, it's the Tamiya Jagdpanther this time, 135 scale. It was just a matter of time before I did this one. It's reasonably priced, and I've put it off only because I'm not a great fan of the German army paint schemes. I just find that dark yellow and dark green and reddish brown. I've done a few vehicles in it and I kind of got bored of it. And so anyway, I've scrapped the camouflage for this one, and just stuck with the dark yellow because I just wanted to focus on the weathering of it. But yeah, I went off German armour a little bit just because there's too much freedom really, because they came out of the factory just dark yellow, as far as I understand, and then it was the crews and the companies, the tank companies themselves, who chose the schemes in the dark green and the I think it's saddle brown from Vallejo, reflective green and saddle brown. And I don't know, it's just people are really creative with it, and I see other people's and it looks great, but then when I try it myself, there's too much of a contrast between that pale yellow and the dark green. I just don't like the look of it, but I enjoyed doing this one. It's a bit of a break from doing my Soviet ones. So yeah, just build it as per the instructions really. Absolutely no issues at all. Tamiya, it just fits together. It's a dream, and just glad to have vinyl tracks again. The last few models I've made have had plastic tracks that you build, and these are the first ones that I've had where they're vinyl tracks, but you don't have to melt them. You can just glue them with the regular glue. So that was quite interesting. That was really easy to use. No issues at all with the build. You've obviously got to pay attention to the order that the wheels go on, and if you brush painting like I do, just pay attention. Keep the top and the bottom separate. Keep the tracks off until you've painted the wheels. Just make sure you've got access at each stage. So you can see that's where I'm up to now. I opted for the late war version with the mufflers on the back there, the flame exhaust flame mufflers on the back, and then in keeping with that, I did the bigger vent for the crew on the back there. You can just see it, and then the skirts, the shirtsen, I'm used to the bigger ones that you get on the Stug and the Brumbar and stuff, and I just automatically cut them up, just score them with the craft knife on the seams, and then they just snapped really easily. And then I'm going to leave off all the supplies and storage and stuff like that until I've painted the body, and probably weathered it as well. It just gets in the way of the brush. Just makes it. You're snapping and breaking things all the time, in my opinion. Leave it till the end. Super glue it on. But no, the instructions say to use super glue to make the tracks follow the contour of the upper road wheels, so the tracks sit heavily like steel tracks would along the road wheels. But as long as you put the skirt on the side, then you don't need to do that because it's hidden. The skirts, guys, are from the end of the war, and I think they were just they were like reactive armour for the a form of like early reactive armour for the Panzerfausts and the anti-armour weapons that the soldiers carried, because they would hit the skirts and the skirts would just break off, blow off, and they would protect the actual hull of the tank. And because of that, I tend to do them quite rough, damage them up a little bit, and I think when I did the Brumbar and the Stug, I left one off on each of them, and I'll probably do the same here just for a bit of kind of realism. I've joined Instagram, guys, late in life. If any of you are over there, look us up. I'll just post some more detailed pictures of the models that I do over there. It's Supermodel Dave, the same as it is here. And yeah, it seems like there's a nice community over there. Seems like there's lots of viewing and liking and all that kind of stuff. Shame there doesn't seem to be a lot of like conversation, but I suppose that's just because it's an international platform, I suppose. But some fantastic stuff over there. There's had a dual effect of like getting your own pictures seen, getting your own models seen, people commenting on yours, but at the same time you're seeing some of the stuff that other people are doing. It's absolutely mind-blowing, makes you want to give up. But, I'm just having fun with it, really. So I treat each plate on the skirts as a kind of individual piece that might have been damaged. These tanks were going through buildings, going through hedgerows, banging into walls. Evasive action, when they came up against an enemy, they'd not care to go through things. So I try and damage up and just try and make it non-uniform, just try and make it so it's interesting and different. And the red oxide primer that you sometimes see people do the kind of replaced parts on these tanks, and they're not camouflage, they're in the primer stage. I'm going to do that as well, I think, on one or two of these shirts. And on some Tamiyas, you've got actual pins and you kind of hook them on and they hang on the pins. But what was really nice was there was just a fixed rail on this tank, and you glued them straight to fixed rail, and there was a really strong connection between the two all the way along, so they were really rigid and sturdy when they were glued on. Yeah, just follow the instruction, guys, and there's bits that are movable and the sprocket wheels and the idler wheels turned. The back door, the escape on the back of the upper hull opens, and the gun pivots realistically around. Lovely model. A lot of surfaces. It's going to take a lot of paint. But yeah, something about the camouflage. I like camouflage on a tank, but I like it when it's sort of a kind of several dark colours together. I just think it's a bit harsh sometimes when you've got a really light base colour and then darks, browns and greens on top of it. And that's what the box art, especially, because most photographs from the period are black and white, but that the box art and other modelers, they tend to do a scheme that I feel like it's quite graphic and quite artistic. It's not like a working vehicle to me. Sometimes you see all these different patterns that they've done, and I suppose people are embracing the freedom of the fact that tank crews themselves often did this additional camouflage, so you can play with it and have some fun with it. I just think sometimes for me it doesn't work. When I've done it, it's not worked very well. My least favourite models are my big heavy main battle tanks, German main battle tanks. But this one not so bad, because I just stuck with one. I stuck with one colour. So yeah, really thinned down Vallejo's dark yellow, and the wheels, the tracks, everything is in the lower half is done. The back of the tank is done, and then behind the skirts, the armour skirts, is painted. So you'll be mindful when you're brush painting to catch everything that's possibly going to be visible through things. And yeah, so I've probably spent, by the time it's at this stage, I've probably spent about an hour painting already to get behind and underneath everything. I've not bothered with inside the tank. And I don't think I'm going to put the chap in the driver's cupola. I think I'm going to have him on the ground in a diorama, chatting with some soldiers. So I hope I don't come to regret the fact I've not painted in the inside, because it might be visible in places through the open turret and stuff. But I don't think. I think it'd be too shadowy to see. If you want to have all the hatches open and make a thing of it, there is some internal pieces on this model, on the Tamiya. You've got all the loading part of the gun, the breech of the gun, and there's some little bits and seats and stuff inside. So then, after the first very watered down coat, I did another quite watered down coat, and I was using some very there's like a top off an aerosol there, and I've got some grey and some yellow ochre, just acrylics watered right down, and I'm using that up, so I'm darkening the yellow colour. Each time I do another coat, I keep it quite dark, and then what I did was mix some Iraqi sand, Vallejo Iraqi sand, with the dark yellow to do some highlights, which I'm just doing now. Incidentally, the dark grey I had left over from doing a wash on some buildings that I'd made, and I'd done it on the underneath of the tank. I'd used it, and I liked the effect of it kind of drizzling and staining, because it went on very wet and dried like a wash would. And even though it's not the proper stuff, it is just water and artist's acrylics. My plan is to, after I've done some highlights, my plan is to make this tank quite dirty with a grey wash. So we'll see how that turns out anyway. I love a big tank. Every time I go on the website to buy my next couple, I'm a sucker for just a big tank with a big gun. At some point, I'm going to do loads of little armoured cars or something, but I suppose it's it's economical, isn't it, to do a big tank when they're not that expensive. And then you do some smaller models. You do them so quick that it works out quite expensive. The build of this may be, in between my work shifts and doing other things, perhaps took me a week, I would say. Definitely no more than a week. Maybe around an hour a day. So between 5 or 6 hours, I think, to get to this stage. And most of that's the wheels and the suspension. I did have some nylon and some wire, some steel wire, that I could have put under those vents on the back of it. And I only realised later on that there was a Tamiya accessory kit, grills for all the vents. I could have done that myself. I could have improvised, and I didn't see in time. And I put the covers on. So if you can get either that set or just buy a sheet of very fine mesh wire, you can add another layer to those vents, and I bet that would have looked good actually. So I've got the yellow to roughly where I want it, the dark yellow, and I wanted to just add the few transfers. There's not many decals at all. There's 3 versions. Fighting the Americans in Belgium, and 2 versions that don't come with any details. But yeah, seven decals. Yeah, nice. I don't know whether I should start including the build, guys. If anybody's got any opinions on that, feel free to leave it in the comments. But to me, the build videos, whenever I look at a build video, what somebody's done on YouTube, I fast forward either to the bits that I've had trouble with, or I fast forward just to when they start painting it. The instructions, Tamiya's instructions, are so good. I mean, to me, there doesn't seem to be a reason to show every detail of the build. The creative thing for me is the dioramas. And I'm going to put this into a diorama that I've not built yet, so I'm going to put some thought into that. sometimes get carried away building dioramas and then trying to match them with tanks, which never seems to work very well. When I used to do it, I used to build a tank first and then come up with a situation for it, and that worked better, so I'm getting back to that. But I've bought some high density foam to make some buildings, and I've been collecting lots of little bits of foliage and buying a few little tufts of grass and things like that off eBay. And yeah, so there's a diorama to follow anyway. I just don't know what it's going to be yet. French farmhouse or Russian road bridge or something. So you see on that side I've got two of the skirts I've put into a very, very dark red. And I'll lighten them up a little bit with some rust tones when I come to the weathering part. I bought this stuff years ago, this decal fixer, when I was doing planes, when I used to do 1/7/2 scale planes. I don't know if anybody would have uses better products, decal products. It's just what I'm used to though. It's all I've ever used. It seems to do the job. It seems to fix them well, and you know. So yeah, guys, I've added some washing up liquid, tiny drop, couple of drops, and a little bit of the Pledge Futures varnish, floor shine varnish, to the grey that I mentioned before, the grey and yellow ochre. So I've kind of made my own pin wash kind of thing, and I'm trying to achieve a natural smear as it dries. And I went back a couple of times and added a little bit more, and then I've got the Q-tip as well, just to take off where there's too much settling at the bottom of a panel. But this was my idea, was just to muddy it up really. It's kind of, as you do it the first time, that's not how it's going to look. It drains down the side, and as it dries, it becomes less obvious, noticeable. So you think you've nailed it, and then you have to go back and just do a little bit more. Always, if you watch my other videos, I'm always looking at ways to replicate effects without having to pay for the fancy stuff, the fancy gear. So that's the effect I was going for, guys. You know, when you've not washed your car for a while and it's kind of just smeared from smog and exhaust fumes and road spray. Because I've done so much of a wash on this model, I've not used any of the actual pin wash that I usually use around the bolts and the vents and stuff. I've just used this one kind of grime effect. So there's 3 or 4 big frames with tools on for this tank. And I'm just adding them now with super glue because it would have been hard to brush paint around them. And then I'll do a little bit of highlighting after that. The model comes with some copper wire as well, so you can make like a coiled up rope effect. It's just on that side there, you can see next to where I'm placing the sledgehammer and crowbar, there's a little coil of wire, which is to denote rope. Yeah, I was pleased with my decision to have slapped a load of camouflage onto this tank. Would have just, I mean, for a start, there's so many different surfaces and details and textures and some great details on the moulding of this tank, and to have tried to brush paint stripes of green and stripes of brown across it. Yeah, I think that's it, guys, with the German armour, what I was talking about before. I think it's the brush painting and getting nice clean lines. That's the difficult thing. Yeah, it was the right decision. I'm trying to keep my work surfaces clean. So I've got this white tray that was in the kitchen, and I'm just trying to keep things clean because my work surfaces, because I build my dioramas and my models at the same desk, it does get very dirty very quickly, covered in bits of old bush and tree branches and plaster. So yeah, just super gluing the toe chains, which I'd painted previously in dark rust, and then I'd used the same grey grime wash that I'd created to darken them a little bit. I think you perhaps are supposed to shape them a little bit around so it looks like a rope hanging, but they just sit in a nice straight line from point to point, so I just left it. You see the back of the tank there? There is clips for tracks. There's a row of clips for tracks. I kind of ignored that. Find that a bit fiddly trying to clip spare track parts on. I do add some of the tracks because there's plenty of spare track parts with this model, but I add them after I've done a bit more weathering. So I'm using one of my pastels, my dust effect dry pastels that I've just scraped with a scalpel, just to make a few highlights. It seems a bit harsh now, but they do. I knock them back a little bit. I just thought one way of doing it, instead of dry brushing paint, I thought it might be a little bit more realistic to use some pastel dust on the upper surfaces and on the parts which are bleached a little bit by the sun. I'm certainly no expert at this, guys. If anybody has any advice or comments how I could do things differently or improve, feel free to leave them. I think when you video yourself doing something like this, I think it does encourage improvement, because you know, people are going to look at it and you try your best. So yeah, rusted up the tracks and added them in belts rather than clipped them on. I don't know how realistic it is or authentic. Highlighted the mud guards. I rusted up the plates on the side. Just super glued all the accessories on after most of the painting and weathering's done. And you can see the smears from the grime wash that I did. I'm really pleased with it. Rusted up the tracks. Yeah, really pleased with this one. I'll include a couple of my pictures off Instagram at the end of the video, just so you can see some closer up kind of shots. Thanks for watching, guys. Please like and subscribe and ring the bell and all that stuff. And next one will be a diorama of some kind to fit this vehicle into. Cheers.